Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features Generation X number 1, cover dated November 1994. So an X-Men event, all new number 1, and to go with it, a gimmick cover, but I really like this one. And I haven't looked at this comic in almost 30 years since it first came out, and I was surprised at the quality in which this comic came out of the bag and board that I had it in. And it's a wraparound cover, so I'm just going to show you the full wraparound there. Because of the nature of this chromium cover, I can't exactly flatten out the comic for you, but you can more or less see it here. And it is, of course, an homage to Jack Kirby's original cover to X-Men number 1, all the way back in 1963. So we've got the new villain here, Emplate, and we have the new mutants here, the various members of Generation X, along with Emma Frost and Banshee, and up here, surprisingly, Gateway on the cover. And the art team, Chris Bachalo and Mark Buckingham, signing his name, Bucky there. Very, very cool cover. And like I said, it comes out of storage like brand new. You could put this on a shelf for sale today, and you know, customers would line up for it. Like, the thing just is preserved so well, the object. So let's open this one up and get into the story. And the title of the story is interesting. It is Third Genesis, and that's a reference to the title of Giant Size X-Men number 1. The story there was titled Second Genesis. So here we go. It's almost as if we're into like the third generation of mutants, and that's kind of glossing over the whole New Mutant series, but however. Creative team here, Scott Lobdell and Chris Bachalo, credited as creators, and they are co-creators of many of the characters in this issue and the series. Inked by Mark Buckingham, lettered by Richard Starkings and Comicraft. So we're in the era now of digital lettering, and so lots of play with fonts in this particular issue. Colored by Steve Buccellato and Electric Crayon, so also the era of digital coloring too. And this book just looks so great, start to finish. 35 pages of story and art from the creative team. So it opens at dawn. The story takes place over the course of one day, which is a nice touch as well. And we have a caption that opens thus: nature's way of saying, here you go, take another shot, try again. And that will get bookended at the end of the story as well. So we can think back to this opening. Here's a whole new day in which to succeed, to give reality to the dreams you had the night before. And then we get introductions throughout this first issue, as you would expect, of the various characters. This is Paige Guthrie, who has as little time for sleep as she does for dreams. She's a mutant, nature's way of saying, here you go, a little something extra, try harder. You've been given genetically altered abilities which separate you from the rest of the human race. Deal with it. So she's out for an early morning run, and let's see whether there's anyone there keeping an eye on her. Also, I just love the detail in the drawing of the wooded area that she's going through, even with the blackbird there. It's nicely done. And then these autumn leaves that she's kicking up in her running, these will be a motif throughout the issue too. So she returns to the main building, the mansion in Massachusetts. This is Emma Frost's old Massachusetts Academy, but it is now being rebranded as Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters. And Paige is met on her early morning run by none other than Jubilation Lee. And we get a little few captions on her. This is Jubilation Lee, nature's way of saying whoops. Shortly after being orphaned, Jubilee made her family among her fellow mutants in the X-Men. Although she volunteered to come to the school in order to best develop her pyrokinetic powers, she was also hoping she'd be able to sleep in a little later in the process. So we get some kind of joshing and banter between the two. Paige is very earnest in her desire to train and be the best she can be, and ultimately join the X-Men. And we get a nice little insight into her character here, where she's reinventing herself, as lots of people do when they go to college. You know, they leave behind the old version of themselves and try and reinvent themselves. And she's here reinventing her whole identity, even at the level of her speech patterns. So she's thinking to herself, not bad gal, of course, if Anne, and if she's from the South, from Kentucky, and she thinks, of course, if I am going to actually lead this team, I do have to set an example. Respect is the key, but there's no respect from Jubilee. And so, as I said, there's some banter between them. And also we get a little exhibition of Paige's powers. So her mutant code name is Husk, and she is able to pull off her epidermal layer to reveal a refreshed version of herself beneath. So she says here, there's nothing gross about my mutant ability to shed my outer skin for a new form underneath. I think it's pretty original, but Jubilee is grossed out by that. And we'll see this play out a little later in the issue as well, and get developed in terms of Jubilee's disgust at Husk's power. And so they continue their conversation here. As I said, Paige is really earnest and is all about training to learn how to be the best mutants we can be. But Jubilee, who spent, what would it be, a year with the X-Men, she says, some of us need more training than others. When I was with the X-Men, and so this is a little kind of trope of this Generation X run, where Jubilee is always harking back to her time with the X-Men and kind of like humble bragging about it. But Paige has had enough. Please, Lee, not another When I Was with the X-Men parable. And Jubilee turns to the fact, you know, pick up your epidermal layer, and then there's somebody watching them from above. And I really like this storytelling here from Bachalo, where we switch the angle. We're looking down on Jubilee, and then we're even looking from the point of view of this silhouetted hand. So who is it that is looking and observing them? Looking at them and observing them from above. And again, just want to praise Bachalo on the work he's putting into these panels, like on that bench that he's drawn. That's difficult to do, and that's observed from life. And also the details of the mansion in the background. A lot of work on these pages. And who is it? It is Monet Sang Kwa, and we get, of course, our little narrative caption introduction to her. Monet Sang Kwa, possessed of a multitude of superhuman attributes, not the smallest of which are beauty and ego. So a great anchor image of her descending to the ground, alighting gracefully to the ground. I like what Bachalo has done here, where he has kind of rendered her foot in motion, but also in perspective, going back into the distance. It's an interesting kind of device here, just to render it with these hatching lines and leaving it at that. And also interesting perspective on the facade of the mansion here with this kind of curved perspective. It's very effective. I wonder, did he do that by eye, or did he use an instrument to get that angle? So Monet here saying, the rest of you may wish to conceal the mutant aspects of yourselves, but I have no such compunctions, because Jubilee was concerned that somebody might observe Monet flying and give away what kind of gifted youngsters are being trained at the school, at the new school. So a little bonding between Paige and Jubilee regarding their posh new schoolmate and her ego. And out to meet them all at 7 a.m. now is Banshee. This is a great image of Banshee in his training gear here, his Xavier's, well, I would call it a tracksuit top. Looks good. Sean Cassidy called Banshee headmaster here at Xavier's, the man in charge. And we'll see the degree to which he's in charge on the rest of the page, where Monet's here that she's expecting a few personal belongings. He'll take charge of it himself, but there's trucks and trucks loads of these personal belongings, and Banshee realizes, no, it is the mid-90s, it is a Homer Simpson reference, when The Simpsons were funny at the time. So in they go for class, and we have a little scene that's set elsewhere. And on the mid-Atlantic red-eye between the United Kingdom and the United States, a very private young man finds himself performing for a curious audience of one. So I like the storytelling here from Bachalo, where we see this little girl looking over the top of her seat, looking back at this guy in silhouette here with the mad hair, and the camera pulls back, so to speak. We see the stewardess with the trolley. Just think about that. Like, if you were trying to draw this quickly, you wouldn't bother with this detail. You'd crop the panel here and wouldn't give yourself the trouble of drawing an air stewardess with a trolley. But Bachalo does it. So he is really putting the work in to this issue. So the mother tells the child to stop staring. It's impolite. And she says, "Mom, that guy has some kind of bionuclear psionic biokinetic field inside him. That's his business, Dina. Now turn around and finish your calculus." So that's pretty cool. So this is our introduction to Jonathan Starsmore. And we see here his invitation from Professor X to come enroll at the new establishment. And we also get to see Mark Buckingham playing around with his inking techniques here. Very, very cool. So Bachalo and Buckingham had collaborated already over at Vertigo, in particular on, and most successfully, on Neil Gaiman's Death miniseries, the first miniseries, The High Cost of Living. And what you see in this issue is slick, controlled inking on the likes of this anchor image of Everett Thomas, aka Sync, and then just playing around with technique here when it comes to Jonathan Starsmore. His code name will be Chamber, and just you've got like white media cut into the very likely painted ink on the page, pen and ink, splattered white paint, lots of fun being had with this particular image, and very effective aesthetically. So then someplace else it'll turn out to be back at the Massachusetts Institute, but when you're reading it, first of all, like, it looks like a jungle. I like the detail of the little toad here sitting on the fallen log. That's very nice, and you'll get lots of that, most particularly in the future from Bachalo. Lots of those little fun details. So this has a ceiling on it. We see it here, and we'll get more information soon. And Everett Thomas is thinking about, like how far he's come and how his mother would be surprised at where he is now. And then he sees this strange reflection in the water. Is it a water snake? What will it turn out to be? It turns out to be Skin. So it's Angelo Espinosa, and he grabs Sync with his distended fingers here and trips him over, and then we get a cool anchor image of Skin. And also, remember what I was saying, Bachalo putting the work in? Look, we've got a little parrot here in the background as well. That's really cool. So, bit of banter between the boys. Skin is worried about Everett sinking with his ability, because Skin really feels horrified by his own mutant power. He's not come to terms with it, and he doesn't believe someone like Sync would have control over that power, but Sync is using it well. So Sync says to him, "Stop squirming, we'll call this a draw." And Angelo pushes Everett away from him. And also what we get here for the first time too, because we didn't see this in either X-Men or Uncanny X-Men when Sync was introduced, this kind of rainbow motif, which indicates that he's using his synchronizing power when he syncs in with another superpowered being's superpower. And then, not too terribly far away, we've got the girls. They're in their training uniforms. Jubilee still wearing her trench coat there, so kind of like giving herself a bit of identity, and she's always like speaking out of turn, and addresses Banshee not as Sir or Mr. Cassidy, but as Cassidy, no Mr. So she's a little bit, what would you say, like over familiar with the teaching staff. And Monet here, Paige is aghast because Page Ernest had been studying the layouts and schematics for the original Danger Room and the Shi'ar-based Danger Room back at the X Mansion in Westchester, and it's all changed up now. So Banshee explains what it is they're looking at. You're looking at the world's first, and no doubt only, fully interactive ecological biosphere, and that will be their training room. So we pick up with Skin and Sync crashing through the window here, and Banshee separates the boys. That'll be more than enough of that, lads, he says. Which one of you came up with the fool idea of cross-training against each other? And here it is. It's Emma in her more demure version of her usual style of costume, but notice the riding crop, and so provocative nonetheless from Emma in terms of her style of dress. And also we get this tension now between the two adults at the new institute, and also this interesting design here in the background, probably by Buckingham. He's putting that in there as well, kind of like a type of a screen tone. Makes the image, the full figure image of Emma, pop. So Banshee says, "I should have known. Are you daft, woman? I thought we decided, Ms. Frost, the students should learn to use their powers individually first." And she responds with that smile on her face and the riding crop in her hand. "You decided, Mr. Cassidy. I only acquiesced, to be polite, as head administrator here at Xavier's. I feel I have some say in how we train these young adults who know more about their powers than you seem willing to give them credit for." So a little bit of tension then between the two adults, between the headmaster, and this is her official title then, head administrator. And so, you know, the kids are there listening. Are they like this all the time? Yep, they are, the bickering. And then this is a surprise. Jubilee gets a shock, because who's that behind her? It's Gateway, and we haven't seen him since Uncanny X-Men 281, 3 years earlier, and then he's gone. So he pops in, teleports in, and then he's gone. And Paige notices that there's something up with her. Jubilee thinks that she imagined it. I like this comical in the background. We've got the silhouettes of Banshee and Emma continuing their argument, and just from everybody else's perspective, it's blah blah blah. And then Emma here cursing, no doubt, at the end. It's time for breakfast. And then the scene shifts to the outside of Logan International Airport, Boston, Massachusetts. This is a great image of this, what is it here, a Cadillac. So Bachalo using photo reference for this, but I like all the details, like the detritus around, like empty coffee cups, and this, it looks like a whole seat here dumped on the ground, and the airplane taking off. Like Bachalo not taking any shortcuts with this first issue. He's pulling out all the stops with the art. And then we've got this kind of funny dynamic between Emplate and his servant, DOA. So he says here, "I don't get it. Looking as he does, the boy is of no use to anyone except me. What is he doing here in the States?" This is Jonathan Starsmore. They're waiting for him. And his driver says, "I'm sure I don't know." And then always the pause, and always a fresh speech balloon, "Sir." So there's a real kind of ironizing of the subservience of his servant throughout. It's a nice little comic touch from Lobdell. So Emplate here, "Of course you don't, D. I suppose I'll wait. I'll have to wait to ask him myself." And then we switch back to the Massachusetts Academy, or now the Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters. And we've got Jubilee and Everett waiting outside for a ride to the airport. And then, interestingly and intriguingly, Monet's kind of in playful mood and climbing in a tree above them. And Jubilee makes the point, climbing trees, Em, isn't that like totally second grade? So that's a little mystery as regards what's going on with them, but it'll get cleared up in due course as to what is happening with her kind of childishness at certain times, and then her kind of prissy superiority at other times. So Banshee pulls up in a convertible, another one where Bachalo clearly was drawing from photo reference, but it looks great. And he asks Monet, will she join them? And she says, "Thank you for inviting me, sir, but I think I'd like to take the time to familiarize myself with the campus." Jubilee here, I think she just has to go and pack her butler. And don't forget to put the caviar and fish eggs into the fridge before they melt, and so on and so forth. But off they go. Jubilee ends up falling into the back of the Cadillac. And so there's banter that you can hear from them as they're driving away. And I like the way that Bachalo has drawn this. It's very charming artwork and depiction of Monet on these pages, and really captures the fact that there's another personality there, hint, hint. And then she gets a surprise, and so do we, the reader, because it's Gateway again. And the narrative captions are interesting. He may be older than time itself. Similarly, he may begin each moment of his life, each time he's perceived to exist by any other sentient being. He has no name, yet he's called Gateway. So it is Gateway. And that's interesting, this idea that each time he's perceived to exist by another sentient being, he may have been. It's a reference to not only Aboriginal Dreamtime, but also Bishop Berkeley's in the 18th century idea esse es percepi, to be is to be perceived. So Lobdell working in some interesting ideas into his development of Gateway's character and who and what he is, which Claremont never finished out because, of course, he quit the X-Men series, so we never got to know what Claremont's ultimate plan for Gateway might have been. But we do know from interviews Claremont gave after he quit the X-Men back in 1991 that he had a plan for Gateway ultimately becoming a mentor for the X-Men, succeeding Professor X. And we're kind of getting Lobdell playing around a little with that idea of Gateway as mentor in the Generation X series, which is very interesting. And of course, Gateway doesn't speak. Generally, he always seems to be in this state of meditation. And we realize that there is a pre-existing relationship between Monet and Gateway, where she says, "It's a pleasure to see you again, mentor." So he's been mentoring her. But the entire reason I came here is so that others might continue my tutelage. And then she's talking, and then she realizes, wait, this isn't about me. It's him. He's returned, hasn't he? This is the him in question. It is Emplate, and he is a sociopath who has a disgust for humanity. What a pathetic waste of genetic resources, because humanity doesn't have the mutant genes that he feeds on. Now, I want to comment on this anchor image. We've got good use of the digital coloring effects here to show Emplate. He's hovering a fraction out of dimensional sync. He's virtually undetectable to those around him by virtue of that, as well as Bachalo's rendering of the ordinary people in the crowd. We'll see some of these characters show up in subsequent pages as well. So, like, we have this kind of beer-bellied Elvis imitator here, and lots of other interesting types. The key point here is, like, he hasn't got like a set style for drawing people, and so that allows him to play around with physiognomies and different body shapes and designs, and it's pretty cool to see that in, you know, like a mainstream superhero book, where very often the artists have kind of a limited range and always draw the same faces and same shaped nose and eyes and so on and so forth. So we're getting variety here on the page, and it's nice and it's interesting. And then we see here that Emplate is able to detect, in the case of this old man, he possesses a long faded trace of mutant ability, but not enough for him to feed on. But it's whetting his appetite for something juicier. And then several feet and a world away, because Emplate is in another dimension, we've got Banshee looking cool with his shades on. We've got Jubilee and Everett there with him. And again, look at all the work on the page, including all these different characters with all their different faces and haircuts and body types and clothes. A lot of work and variety. So they've made their way through airport security to meet Jonathan off the plane. the 406 from London. So Banshee's happy, they're at the right gate. Here's Emplate, and he's scanning. And there, again, we have a use of the digital color effects to see Jonathan Starsmore in advance behind these heads. So here he is coming towards Emplate. And Jubilee and Everett see him, all wrapped in the bandages there. Pretty cool design. And Banshee's saying, he's here because he needs our help, people. He can do without our pity. And this is really, really well told scene. They're not aware of Emplate at all. He is moving towards Starsmore. Starsmore can't see him either. And the narrative captions say, it is impossible to know when even the most normal of situations can change in an instant, from the mundane to madness or to murder. Yum, says Emplate. And also what I really like on this page, there's that Elvis impersonator again, is Banshee and Jubilee and Everett way in the background. Really gives you the sense of an airport like full of people, arrivals, departures. Really communicates that so well. Just great work by Bachalo on this issue. And there he is. He's materializing in our dimension and grabs Starsmore and starts to suck the energy out of him that he needs. He does it gleefully easily because he's convinced there's nothing here to frustrate his plans, but he's wrong because there are some mutants there. And Banshee orders Jubilee to grab this little girl, pull her out of harm's way, and then he lets rip with his sonic scream. That's a great image there. And again, Buckingham having great fun with the inks too, using splatter technique, white media as well. Really nice work. And Banshee's ripped the suit or coat off Emplate's back, and then we see this other kind of body armor beneath the cloth. So Banshee is surprised that Emplate knows his identity, and he says, it's just one aspect of my power, Sean. May I call you Sean? Knowledge at a glance. I see your power, your passion, your past and present. So Jubilee's not impressed. She mocks him. And look at this kind of rendering of the skin folds underneath his like beady eye here. Very reminiscent of the work of John Totleben and Steve Bissette on Swamp Thing. So I think both Bachalo and Buckingham would have been readers of that, would have been influenced by it, and they're working some of that in here into their rendering of these skin folds on Emplate. And I'll point that out again in another image coming up soon. So there's some fighting here. Sync gets involved as well, syncing in with Banshee. He's able to take that attack from Emplate. Emplate here, greedy, getting full, thinking about absorbing all of them, all their energies. And then there's a shock, there's a twist. Starsmore isn't a victim here. He says, you sincerely want to be impressed, try this pillock. So he attacks Emplate and frees himself, saying nothing's impossible. And then we get our first full look at Starsmore, and then that just blast in his chest. His neck is gone, his jaw is gone, and we've got all this biokinetic psionic energy spilling out. And again, like, here's lots of fun on the page in the inks with these spirals by Buckingham. And here we go. This is totally John Totleben, Steve Bissette, Alan Moore's Swamp Thing style inking going on here. Very, very nice work. And look how it goes cheek by jowl with the cleaner, more superheroic inking here on our superhero characters. There's a nice blend of aesthetics in this work. Very nice. We've got the spirals over here as well. Very, very nice work. So Emplate here is getting angry, and we get to see his hand that he feeds through, and it's got these horrible little teeth as well. So basically what he does is he feeds on the bone marrow of mutants, and via that he takes their mutant energies, which sustains him. And then he's attacked by Monet. and he feels the attack. And she says, "It was pain, Emplate, get used to it." So the other team members have arrived, courtesy of Gateway. And Emplate says, "You have me at a disadvantage, young lady, for I am for some reason unable to discern. You know my name, yet I am for some reason unable to discern yours." So that contradicts what he said earlier, that he knows every mutant's name, powers, by just looking at them. So there's something up here. Either he's lying or there's something else going on whereby he is unable to use his power on Monet, and that will get explained in time. So Paige Husk goes in for the attack foolhardily and against Banshee's orders, and then she is badly attacked by Emplate here. He rips her in the guts, and Banshee here is aghast. But Jubilee, and this picks up with the beginning of the story, realizes there's a way to remedy this. So she rips off the outer epidermal layer of Husk, and so she's in fine form beneath. But it raises a question: how is she ripping the skin from her? It looks like she's also ripping off the uniform, and then what, is there another uniform underneath? So it's a little bit unclear exactly how it works for Paige. But then we have the whole team facing off against Emplate here. It's pretty cool. Really nice image. And also what I like on this page is this kind of double page half spread here, is the little details like the shoe here on its own, the shopping bag, the briefcase dropped by everyone who's run from the scene, the little bit of damage here on the sign, even the plane, the nose of the plane outside. Yeah, Bachalo not scrimping on any of the details here in this work. We get a good look of Emplate straight on here, and he's getting ready to leave, but he tells them, "Know that wherever you go, I can see you. Wherever you run, I can follow. Wherever you hide, I can find you, and I will. Know that I will devour each and every one of you, one morsel at a time, and that there's not a blessed thing you can do to stop me. Bon appetit, children." So Monet goes after him. "Wait, we can stop him from disappearing," but she's pulled back because Emma's intervened psionically. And she says, "We nearly lost Husk to her hot-headedness. I wanted to prevent an encore performance, so I telepathically commandeered your thoughts for an instant." And M is really, really upset by that. "Don't ever enter my mind again." And that's interesting. Are we clear on this? "Don't be so sensitive, child," says Emma. "I was only saving your life." And then we're on to the fact that the airport cops and fire men are oblivious, seemingly, to the presence of Generation X and everything that's been going on. And that's because Emma has been using her telepathic power to make us sideblind to the herd. Banshee smacks himself on the side of the head. "Herd? Charles, what have you gotten me into?" So Jubilee goes up to introduce herself to Jonathan Starsmore and bid him welcome to Generation X. Really nice, really great work on these pages. And then, way away, where did Emplate go? Well, to another dimension. Here's his little servant here with a big bunch of keys. And Emplate needs to feed, so he's got a prisoner. The battle took a lot out of him, but his prisoner is gone. She's gone. So we've got the broken chains here. We've got some kind of leather bindings here on the floor of the cell. "After years of acting as my sole sustenance," he says, with a look of panic in his eye, "what am I to do without her?" And then, where is he? He's in some kind of lighthouse, and there's a storm raging around it, and crashes of thunder and lightning. And his little servant says, "We'll find your meal ticket." Pause, sir. And then, nice kind of transitional device here. There's also a storm raging over the mansion in Massachusetts, and we've got, it's 1994, we've got Skin lighting up in the mansion, and that's kind of in contrast to Professor X's new no smoking rule back in Westchester, where Gambit's not allowed to smoke in the mansion anymore. But Angelo lighting up here, Jubilee saying, I'm so impressed, with a cigarette, Paige checking out the books. Nice little bit of character bits there, the different kinds of personalities here, and the two more extroverted characters kind of hanging out, Everett and Jubilee. And then we switch to upstairs, and Emma here telling Sean to lighten up. In case you didn't notice, we won. But Banshee's more concerned. He says, I wish you could, sir, share your enthusiasm, but as it is, we don't know what we're up against. And then in the door comes Starsmore, and he says, I believe there's someone here to see you. So they come downstairs. Banshee goes out into the front garden, and who's there? It is Gateway. And Banshee's not happy. Gateway, as much as I appreciate you helping against Emplate today, the truth of the matter is I don't want you hanging out here. For whatever your reasons, coming and going as you please. If you've something to say, man, just say it. And Gateway never says anything, but he has something to say this night. And it is penance. So this takes Banshee by surprise. You actually spoke. And Emma says, I don't think he meant it as a verb, Sean. And I think what she means there is like do penance. It seems to me he was referring, gotta turn the page for a big reveal, to her. And here we go. This is the girl who will have the name Penance in subsequent stories. And we get our bookending narrative captions. A surprise. Nature's way of saying, I'm still in control. You never know what's going to happen next. Try again tomorrow. So a day in the life of Generation X. 2 new members joining, Jonathan Starsmore and Penance. And there's a mystery as regards who she truly is and what her relationship is to both Emplate and Monet. So next, more in the mystery of Penance. Jubilee confronts Gateway. M investigates Emplate, and Skin and Husk play Scrabble. And we got a little sketchbook back here. So here's Bachalo's design for Penance. And here in the background, very interesting, is a figure that looks a bit like Monet in the same pose as Penance. Interesting. We've got his design for Banshee. We've got design for Paige, Monet, Jubilee, of course, Skin again, Starsmore here, Chamber. Interesting here, we've got Lobdell. These are Lobdell's words saying that Jubilee is 13 and a half only. And Husk again, Sink, and here a new character to come, Mondo. There you go. So I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on Generation X #1. Feels like you could put this on the stands today. Like, it's fresh, it's entertaining, it looks good, the art is brilliant, and this gimmick cover, it looks as new as it did on the day that I picked it up off the racks back in 1994. So let me know your memories of this book. Were you a fan? How did you receive it when you first saw it in 1994 or afterwards? Let me know in the comments. I do hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like it on YouTube, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.